Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Hope you don't mind that I sat down for this one. Been at it all day long in this sun, and I'm just getting tired. I'm getting to that point. Even though the temperature's cooler, they say it is, but it still feels quite hot when you're out in that. I'm telling you, the amount of radiation that feels like it's coming down. I don't know if it's just me. I mean, I've spent most of my life being outside, working outside, and it seems like this year that the amount of just the radiation beating down on you, it seems pretty intense. Anyways, speaking of the sun, there is a CME headed at us. It doesn't look like it's going to be some big earth-shattering major event, but it's at a moderate level, and it could cause some communications problems. So I guess just be ready for that. Be aware of that. It's not something to go lock yourselves in your bunkers and bury all your stuff in your Faraday cages, but the sun's in its active cycle again. Wanted to talk again about food. Yes, food. I sometimes wonder if all this other stuff is just a cover-up for the impending doom and famines that we're facing. All this stuff of talk of war and stuff going on in politics and stuff. I mean, is it happening? Is it real? Or is this just more distractions? I mean, it can be real and happen and still be a distraction. The fact that everything looks like whatever you feel like is going on right now when it comes to food prices, food tightening, it's most likely going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what we're about to face. Vast amounts of the earth is experiencing severe droughts. Most of Europe, a lot of places in the Middle East, they are experiencing some really significant droughts. The United States, 60 to 70% or more of the United States has experienced drought and significant drought this year. Everything from the West Coast all the way over through to Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, even parts here in Missouri have experienced it, and it has caused anywhere from moderate problems up to major problems, where we've seen ranchers being forced to sell off large amounts of their cattle because they can't feed them, because they can't water them. I've heard from ranchers that say that they're not even really worried about the food, even though that's important, but the immediate thing is that they can't get enough water to feed them, because they have to pump for water, and there's places that are putting restrictions on how much they pump for water. So there's all of that. It's affecting our food, our crops in general right now. The latest numbers from the USDA, or the U.S. Ag Department, are showing that pretty much all of our crops in America right now are anywhere between 4 and 6% below the 5-year average, which I understand isn't extreme. That's not extreme. Other, like vegetable crops, are really suffering. And then, of course, the flip side is that there's places where massive flooding has been happening. It seems to be difficult to find an area where it's fairly moderate, meaning that it's not too much rain, but certainly not too dry. It's going to affect us. Long term, Americans, if anything, one of our big weaknesses is that we're very focused on the immediate. We focus on the short game. We're very narrow-minded about, what's going on. We don't really think too much about, what's it going to be like next year or the year after that. We're focused on right now. What's the food prices right now? How's that affect me when I go to the grocery store right now? Too many Americans aren't thinking, well, if the food prices are this bad now, and everything in the whole world of food production is really bad, then what's food prices going to be next year? There's been countless factories that's been either shut down because they can't afford to stay in business, or they have been mysteriously burned or to the ground, or some other disaster that's taken them out of the system. There's been various growing, operations. Lots of chickens have been, killed this year, 35, 40 million chickens, causing prices of chicken to go up. And it's just one thing after another. We've talked on this channel before several times about China and how they have been just doing massive stockpiles for years now. And here's a new article. The worry is that with all the potential food shortages, global food shortages that are happening, that China, instead of cutting back on their stockpiling, they're going to kick it into high speed. This right here shows this is the U.S. Department of Agriculture is estimating the amount of stock that, the amount of supply that China has in storage. And we're talking 60 and 70% of the world's supply of corn, rice, and wheat. This is a massive amount, and maybe they do have a big population, but still, this is a very massive amount. They have been buying up every commodity they can get their hands on. They're working out deals with countries like Brazil to buy up pretty much just about every bit of corn that they grow that they don't keep for themselves. So the immediate worry is that this is going to exacerbate shortages. I think the long-term worry should be, well, why are they doing this? I mean, their economy isn't doing that great right now. They don't have a lot of money. Why are they stocking up on so much food? And it's a question that Americans really should be asking themselves. Do they believe that there's going to be some massive world war that maybe they start or they're part of? Are they aware of some type of other big disaster that's coming? Why are they stocking up on so much food? Or is it that they're just being economically smart and they know that within another year or two, the whole world is going to be really desperate for food and they're going to have a lot of it to sell? I don't know. I don't know the answer. But we, not just as Americans, but as prepared Americans and I understand there's people from other countries that watch this channel a lot. We should be aware of this kind of stuff. We need to be aware that while the crops here in the United States aren't to the level of complete failure, there are some areas, there are certainly some areas that they have failed. I've seen way too many reports. I've had way too many people contact me that talked about entire fields of corn that just rotted, it didn't produce, or whatever it is, or other crops. Europe is doing awful. There's large areas in Europe that they have completely, total crop failure. Because of the amount of drought and heat that's affecting them. We as prepared-minded people should set ourselves apart from the rest of the country, the rest of just normal humans, the normies, the sheep, whatever. We have to realize that this may not necessarily be an immediate problem. This is a problem that's going to hit us hard in the coming months and years. We have to be serious about planning for this. One of the debates right now, or has been for months, even amongst preppers, is are we actually going to see real shortages in the United States, or are we just going to see, increasing prices of food? My opinion is we're going to see both. I don't know that we'll necessarily see shortages to the levels of, say, East Africa or other countries, Mexico, places that may experience, certain places in the Middle East and stuff that are experiencing real shortages, like starvation, famine level shortages. We may not experience that, but we're certainly going to experience increased food costs. And this isn't taking into consideration the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to even more devalue our dollar, and all these other things that are happening. This is just looking at food. And I know that I talk about this from time to time, and sometimes it's like I'm, just a broken record. Well, why, pick something different. You've talked about this so many times. I talk about this a lot because what is more important in your life right now when it comes to your body staying alive. I'm not talking about your family and relationships and your relationship with the Father in heaven. I'm talking about just on a purely biological level of staying alive. Okay? It's been said before, if you control the food, you can control the people, and that's absolutely true. And history has proven that over and over. There's been wars fought over food because of famines and droughts and shortages. And here we are in America facing something that we've never really faced, not on this level. And I think that's part of the big reason why so many Americans are tuning this out. I mean, you don't have to get on some crazy conspiracy prepper guy like me to find this out. Mainstream news is talking about it. All over, not just the conservative, mainstream, which there really isn't, but all mainstream news has been talking about this for months. That, the possibility of real food shortages, real famine level shortages could happen in the United States. And even if it doesn't get to that point, just the fact that food is going to be a lot more than it is already. I mean, we're already seeing just over the last year, seems to be on an average of about a 30% increase in food. I know their numbers say about 13%, or at least food went up 13% over last month. But, we're seeing at least about a 30% increase in food. And a lot of times that's not including the shrinkflation. So you're seeing a product go up, 20, 30% in price, but it's also, the amount that you're paying for, you're getting maybe 5 or even 10% less in total volume. So you have to add that to that. And, in some areas, in some foods, it's very likely that, we've seen up to a 50% increase over last year in food costs. That's a lot. And we're being told that it's just begun, folks, to hold on, because it's about to get real. You see, because most of the food that we are eating this year is food that was grown last year. Not all of it, not the fresh stuff, but the majority of the food that's on the shelves, the pastas and the canned beans and all, a lot of that was grown last year. And last year was fairly decent when it came to food. It was a little higher, but it wasn't like it is this year. You just wait till next year gets here. And then the year after that. It's going to get serious. And I think Americans in general, and even some preppers, have kind of ignored this and maybe not taken it as seriously as they should, because we've never experienced this before. This isn't something that we know of. We have no concept of what we're talking about. If you're in some African country or South America or, different places, India, different, areas like that they on occasion deal with famines and shortages, and they just don't have enough food to really, thrive and stuff. When they come out and say, hey, we're going to have we've got a bad year and there's famine and shortages, people know what that means. They've experienced it before. Americans haven't. At least the vast majority of Americans haven't experienced that. Maybe you were too poor to buy a lot of food, but we're talking that it's not available. The prices are just too high. You're working hard, you've got a job, you're making decent money, and you still can't afford it. This is the reality that is very possibly going to happen over the next year or two. These levels of food shortages, coupled with famine and inflation and droughts and stuff, they very, very rarely just happen for like 1 year and then they fix themselves. Okay, it's extremely rare. And so the possibility, even if nothing else happens, even if we don't go into wars and all this kind of stuff and the dollar doesn't completely collapse and all that, even if none of that stuff happens, the very likelihood that the food problem will persist for at least another 3 or 4 years before we start to see an improvement is quite real. There's been so much damage. There's lakes everywhere, waterways everywhere that you know of that are shrinking down in size to where there's hardly any water left in them. Europe is dealing with that in a really excessive way. Down in the southwest United States, they're dealing with it. huge rivers and lakes that, power electricity for everyone and provide water for millions of people, they're drying up, and they're drying it up at an astonishingly rapid rate. We're seeing, massive shortages of water in places like Texas and stuff, where, like I said, they can't even water the cattle. And far too many people just don't get it. They're not awake. And so when they start to realize this, because it's so obvious, because, right now there's so many people that are still buying into all this, the lies and the rhetoric that, it's 0% interest. Oh, it's not recession. Oh, inflation's gone down. Oh, the job market's great. Oh, the economy's the strongest it's ever been. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of people that's still buying that baloney. But eventually it's going to get bad enough that even the dumbest out there is going to say, and it just doesn't feel like it's the best economy in the history of America. I mean, I can't even buy food. Like, I'm hungry and I have nothing to eat and I have no money to buy it. And it's hard to find what the only thing I can find at the grocery store is things I just can't afford. Like, this is getting serious. People are starting to just steal and rob, from stores and each other because they're hungry. It's going to get to the point that the lies being spewed out of their mouths aren't going to work anymore, and people are going to realize it. And the realization of panics and riots and things that we've already seen in other countries can very, very likely happen here. And so many Americans just don't get it. And unfortunately, I think even a lot of preppers, they don't want to believe it. And preppers probably understand it's possible. They don't want to believe it. Folks, we have to, and as the military term, we have to embrace the suck. We have to embrace it and understand that it's real. It's not something we're going to avoid and run away from. It's going to happen, okay? There's just... How else could it happen? When we're dealing with shortages and droughts and all kinds of problems in agriculture this year, it's going to get worse, okay? It has to. And so we have to get ourselves ready for it. We have to condition ourselves mentally for it, and we have to really prepare for it. Continue stocking up every chance you get. It's getting harder to. If I had, say, $300 and I said, you know what, we're going to go and we're going to buy $300 of food to just put in for stock. This is just prepper food. We're going to buy $300 in cans and beans and rice. That $300 isn't going to buy as much as it did a year, 2, 3 years ago. It's just not. So it's harder now. It's harder to stock up on more. But we have to do it. We can't stop. We can't give up. We can't ignore this. We can't glaze over and just pretend it away. It's not going away. I mean, going back to the Chinese. I mean, why are they keep stocking up? Why are they buying up every possible bit of food that they can get their hands on? They're not stupid. CCP is not stupid. Don't be stupid either. Continue to get your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.